Hi everyone, welcome to this webinar about the Shopify tax migration today. We've put this together because we know it's a bit of a hot topic right now amongst Shopify sellers. And I'm really excited to have Phil from Outserve here today. Phil's a Shopify partner, as is A2X, and he has been really researching this topic. So he's going to fill us in on a few of the details, which I hope will be helpful if you're selling on Shopify. Just a brief disclaimer. We're at A2X, we're Shopify partners, and Phil at Outserve is also a Shopify partner, but we're not speaking on behalf of Shopify. We're just sharing with you some information that we've been able to glean by researching this topic on behalf of some of our sellers. So, Phil, thanks for being here today. Really excited to have you on the webinar.
No problem at all. Absolutely great to be here, and thanks very much for inviting me.
Really quickly, just tell us a little bit about Outserve in case people haven't heard of Outserve before.
Yeah, Outserve work with growing and scaling e-commerce businesses, really helping with the common tech stacks that we see elsewhere. Obviously, Shopify, Amazon, Xero, QuickBooks, and of course A2X really helping from a sort of an accounting and consultant point of view. So we've got a team of accountants and consultants who can really help with some of the things I think we're going to be discussing today.
And you work with some big Shopify sellers, don't you? Some brands that people might have in their own houses or be familiar with.
Yeah, and the smaller ones as well, but it's really nice to work with some of the bigger brands that you can probably see on our website, again, in the tens of millions of turnover, all using Shopify, Amazon, A2X, and Xero.
Okay, so just to get down to the main topic of this webinar, Shopify have recently notified merchants in the UK and EU that they will be migrated from their existing tax services to the new Shopify Tax UK and EU. So, Phil, first question for you. What does this mean for sellers in the UK and EU? What do they need to be aware of with this change?
Yeah, and it's interesting. Maybe some sellers probably may have not even noticed that as much changed in the background. And go and check. Everybody should have had an email, which is said from the 28th. So you will now be effectively using the new Shopify tax functionality. I think as we've been looking, the key part of this that businesses need to understand, along with some interesting and new functionality coming into Shopify Tax, while it's free for the moment until 31st December, then there will be charges for using this functionality from the 1st of January. So this really is the time to prepare. To think we've got a little bit of time before the 1st of January to think, how is that going to affect your business? Probably looking at your trading style and the different sorts of charges. You can opt out at any time. You could opt out now. I'm not sure there'd be a lot of benefit in that when you can have the service free until the 1st of January. And of course, you could always opt out now and come back in later. So you've got some options, and we can talk about, there are 3 options to look at, which is there's Shopify Tax, which is the full functionality that you'll pay for. There's a level called Basic Tax, which is free, and another one called Manual Tax.
So tell us a bit more about Shopify Tax and what we think it's going to do. What's the value added to Shopify sellers with this new feature?
Yeah, I think with using the full Shopify Tax, there's going to be the maximum amount of automation. So ensuring the tax rate table is fully up to date. I think obviously slightly easier in the UK with maybe the main 20% rate and then some of the rates on certain products. Of course, then you've got EU countries. If you're trading in the EU, then there's going to be quite a few more tax rates. Not that they change every day, but they can definitely change. So keeping those tax tables up to date and making sure that you're charging the right amount there. We are, seeing that the full functionality of Shopify Tax will make sure that every customer has a VAT compliant invoice available for them. And they're then starting to introduce some of these, they're calling them tax liability insights. I think one of the functionalities we could say is really calculating for some of the smaller businesses when they actually meet the VAT threshold for registering for VAT. I think we'd probably say that many A2X clients and many of the clients we deal with are already VAT registered, but it is one of the tax liability insights actually showing it's now time. You're getting near that turnover threshold in the UK, and obviously if there was EU registrations you needed to think about. We do know it's a lot more complicated in the US, where you've got nexus limits, physical nexus, economic nexus, but that's probably quite an easy one within the UK.
I think that VAT compliant invoices is going to be a real bonus for some sellers because that's been an issue for a while. So it's good that they've added that in.
I think, as you mentioned, and we've seen this before, some Shopify people actually have a sort of a workaround or a plugin or a customization to have those invoices, or some are generating them manually when they need to. So I think yes, that is a nice piece of functionality within the full Shopify tax.
Yeah, and especially if you're doing wholesale through Shopify, it's really helpful. I think we do need to point out, don't we, that this doesn't change Shopify's basic requirement. It doesn't remit the VAT on behalf of merchants, as we do see with some of the other platforms now. Merchants still remain responsible for filing and remitting their VAT as per their local regulations. So that is something that is an important difference with Shopify between the other platforms. And I think it's always worth pointing out. And these hopefully will be tools that will help you to do that more effectively.
Yeah, I think we really need to be that the functionality of A2X has never been needed more, and tools like Xero and QuickBooks that again are doing the final VAT calculations and VAT filing are absolutely needed. And there's nothing within any of the documentation that we've seen on these new features which is going to be changing that.
Okay, so Phil, another question for you. How do you think this change with Shopify Tax is going to impact sellers' numbers overall?
And clearly there is going to be impact if you're going to be on Shopify Tax. Then there's going to be a charge for every order, and that really depends on what licensing plan that you're on with Shopify, and we can have a look about that. And of course your trading style, how many orders do you have, the value of those orders, and I think this is the time now probably to whip out a spreadsheet and start calculating what that impact and cost might be. I think we're hopefully showing on this slide some of the key things that are showing here. Is there's quite a disparity. If you're on Shopify Plus, then it can be as low as 0.15% of a transaction value, which you'll be paying for the tax calculation process. And this could be a really good time actually for people who maybe are not on Shopify Plus to look at it again. We've often looked with our clients at when is it economic. When is there an economic benefit to move to Shopify Plus? Often because of merchant fees and other additional things that Shopify Plus brings. Now you've got another reason to look. To go actually, the difference between probably paying 0.25% in general on a UK sale of a non-plus subscription compared to a 0.15%. And then what we're going to obviously need to understand with A2X is here if we've got more charges that need to be allocated. So, in that Shopify payout or in the Shopify billing, we need to get more costs into the profit and loss. It may be very small in a percentage, but this all mounts up. It's another piece out of people's margin, and really calculating and understanding that fee is very important, and probably budgeting for some of these costs next year in 2025.
And you mentioned that there was also a cap. That was interesting when you said that earlier when we were talking about this. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, luckily, I think, although they're small percentages, they do mount up. So there is a cap, and there's caps, in all the different regions, generally about the same amount. So there's a cap on a per order basis, which in the UK is 99 pence. So you'll never pay more than 99 pence on each order. So I think that if I get the maths right, somewhere around, you say £660 at the bottom end means that any order over that value, you'll only ever pay 99p. So again, this is another one for the spreadsheet. If you're looking at you do have large order values, you're not going to be then penalized past that. And there is at the moment fully advertised a maximum annual fee of £5,000. So if you are turning over tens if not hundreds of millions of pounds, your Shopify tax will top out at £5,000, and I think it's €5,000 in Europe or $5,000 in the US. So again, important things to bear in mind, especially for some of those larger businesses who are starting to think this really is going to end up being quite a big number, that it will cap out. Unfortunately, it will mean that the smaller businesses maybe are suffering more in some ways. But also the other thing to think about is that first £100,000 is fee free as well. So for the very small businesses, the first £100,000 per year per annum has no fee. So that's going to protect the very, very small businesses. Arguably under that, you may not be VAT registered, so it may not be such a big issue. but everyone will get that first £100,000 free. So maybe it's a month free for some people, but it's really understanding all of the different parts of it. There's a bit of a matrix here now to calculate what subscription level am I on, how many orders do I do, what are the value of my orders, and what could this really be costing me, and clearly making this decision. And each business will be different. Is it worth it for me? And would basic tax, which is going to tick a lot of people's boxes, not going to have that functionality, the sort of nice things that we just mentioned, maybe is basic tax enough? And for some, maybe decide to trial basic tax for a period and see how they get on with that, because they can always upgrade back to Shopify Tax if they wish to after that.
Yeah, because as you mentioned, they're not committed. They can opt in and out again if they need to, can't they?
Yeah, so I think there's some flexibility there, and you've got this time. We've got a few weeks now. I know it's busy for people in a lot of e-commerce businesses. It's a busy time, and this is another headache. And this is maybe where they can reach out, to ourselves at Outserve, reach out to the accountants or the bookkeepers who are supporting them, or even A2X maybe to really understand how this is going to affect them. But you've got a few weeks now. Just think. And equally for maybe in January, if you want to try Shopify Tax, at least you'll know you've got that first £100,000 for free. So that first £100,000 of orders in January. But we appreciate these are very busy times for many e-commerce businesses in quarter 4. We've got Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and of course the Christmas period. So it is another thing to think about. And I think this is why this is so important to get the message out there. You may have missed that initial email or not quite understood the effect of this, and not thinking if you don't opt out, you will be paying from the 1st of January after the first £100,000.
All right, quick word on A2X. Just if you're using A2X for your Shopify sales, we are monitoring the situation. We're keeping an eye on it. And as this transition period happens and we start to see these new fees, we'll let you know. We'll be sending you an email, and we'll let you know what to do in terms of just accounting for these fees. We suspect they'll be deducted from your regular payouts, in which case we'll pick them up as a new transaction, but we will let you know about that closer to the time. If you've got any questions, please do email us at contact@a2xaccounting.com. You can get in touch with Outserve. I'm sure they love to talk to you. If you need a review, you need to talk to Phil about your numbers and see how this is going to impact you more closely with your own business specifics, please reach out to them at www.outserve.co.uk. I'm sure you guys would be really happy to speak to them, wouldn't you, Phil?
100%, absolutely happy to offer us, a half an hour call with everybody, bit of a review of where they are, but we can definitely have a discussion about how these Shopify tax fees are going to affect them, and the pros and cons.
Okay, so this has been a really quick webinar, but we hope it's been really helpful. We've been able to pick Phil's brain and learn more about these changes. If you do have questions, reach out to Phil at Outserve's website. If you want to give A2X a try, you can always email us at contact@a2xaccounting.com, and we'll help you get set up. But as we say, open conversation. You want to chat more, just reach out to us, and we'd love to talk to you. So have a great rest of the day, and thanks for watching this webinar. Thanks, Phil, for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.